because the water was way higher than what they thought it would be. And the 3 out of the 4 stayed in the water. And my husband was one of them. And that's when I discovered that I was pregnant.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So that was, of course, an incredible experience because, I was pregnant for the first time, or let's say the second time. The first I had miscarried, let's say. And well, you have to deal with it. So now, finally, my son is born. And then just a jump 14 years later, I wanted for my son to have some kind of connection with his father. And I was looking for a medium, somebody who would be able to make that connection. And so during that session, I received a message. Your husband would also like to talk to you, has a message for you.
Welcome to The Reluctant Medium, where we cover the gamut of out there conversations. With an open mind and a curious heart, we want to talk about it all, from psychic phenomena and energy medicine to beings from other star systems and out-of-body experiences. You'll find a great balance between grounded science-backed topics and others that science hasn't quite caught up to yet. I'm your host, Dr. Maria Rothenberger, a psychotherapist by trade and a reluctant spirit baby communicator. And hey, even though I'm a medium, I'm not buying everything folks are selling. I just have a voracious appetite to know more about what I call the world of the weird. Join us on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube at The Reluctant Medium. I'll see you there. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Reluctant Medium podcast. I am so delighted to bring this first-time topic to the Reluctant Medium. It is so important and another piece to expand into higher consciousness, higher awareness, connection with ourselves. I'm delighted to bring you today Christina Warmenbol. She is an Akashic Records extraordinaire. And I'm excited to get to have you here today, Christina. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Maria, for having me. I'm excited completely. So,
Yes, this is going to be a beautiful conversation. But first, I want to ask you who you are and what work do you do, including Akashic Records, and how did you come to do this work?
Yeah, so in fact, it's a whole story because I started when I was still studying as an occupational therapist. And so during my studies, I was just wondering, how come that people become ill or, that they have problems to solve that I have to help them, so and that is in many levels. So it can be physical, mental, emotional. And so I was always wondering, in fact, there is something deeper here. Why are people getting ill? And of course, I didn't really have the answers from the normal surroundings in the medical sector. And so finally, I got answers from a friend who said, in fact, there's lots of things happening, of course, in the beginning of life, but even before birth. And so my whole world opened up to complete other information. And so I started to read whatever I could read, but that's long ago, that's in the 80s. So, I mean, I have been a little bit on this earth. And so in the 80s, there was not a lot yet as information. It was just starting, like the prenatal psychology only started up, like the association started in 83 or 84, something like that, with Thomas Verney, etc. So, and I was just very hungry for more. And in fact, after a little while, I have discovered that I had myself some origins of my problems there. And so, in fact, I was a little bit depressive, let's say, and I really wanted to know where that came from. And so I knew already about this way to go to the subconscious, like to take the steps down the staircase. And I ended up in a space where I met my mother. And she said, "Come and sit next to me here." And so she talked to me about, talking. I mean, I had this information coming to me that the origin of that was sitting in this prenatal period of mine. So that means my mother had already 4 kids. So, well, like 4 little boys between year and 6 years of age. Boys, can you imagine? And then she was pregnant with me. In fact, her heart was big, wide open because she wanted to have 7 kids. It was only the fifth, but it's only the fifth. But so I felt, okay, there is a yes here, but there is also a no, because her body couldn't really deal with it. Like, she had headaches all the time, back pain, etc. So um, I felt like something was not completely there. So I felt that, and I know that has been at the origin of, many things, like, a belief that I was not good enough, and I shouldn't have been there. I was not lovable. All these beliefs that are unconsciously uh, developing in the prenatal period already. And so, gradually I went on and studied, etc. So after a few years, I started to give courses for pregnant women myself. In fact, I was the pioneer in Belgium, because it didn't exist. Like, a childbirth educator didn't exist in Belgium at that time. So I was a pioneer for that. And so even if I had not really put a child into the world yet, I knew what it was to be a fetus. And so the women were really very open to that. And so I was able to teach a little bit about this prenatal psychology. Later on, I moved to Canada, and it was here that I even went deeper, into, I became a therapist of a therapy of intrauterine life. So to bring people back to their own prenatal period. And that is so incredibly interesting, because the people themselves can go into their own story of what they have experienced. And that is from conception on. So we all have that memory in us, because you can ask the question, how come, this first cell, how can you remember? There is no brain. How can you remember? But with the science of today, we know now that cells do have kind of a memory, and that you even can go before birth, like the moment of incarnation, the moment that the soul is readying to come to this place on earth, to their parents, that house, that city, whatever, it was planned. And you can already feel into how it is when I come to this earth, how it is. So, and then all these stages in the pregnancy, like moment of conception, is of course very important, because the parents are, in fact, putting a blueprint there. There is the blueprint of the soul, but there's also the blueprint of the parents themselves, how they are at that moment of conception. And then, the first moment that the mother becomes conscious about, she's pregnant, that's very important for the soul, for the psyche of the baby, etc. So there's many moments during the 9 months. And so, so I became this therapist of intrauterine life. And then later on, I became also an Akashic Record reader. And I can tell you the story. When I came to Canada, I married here. I found my husband after a few months. And so I had already this whole baggage of prenatal life. And so we wanted to become parents ourselves. And we started preparing before conception, because we knew that it was really important. So that's when I went to this course of therapy of intrauterine life. And when this course was over, I became pregnant, but I didn't know it immediately. And so in the next few weeks, my husband had planned to go on a trip in nature. He was a mountain climber, and he had done Everest. He had gone to Everest as the first climber of Quebec, the first alpinist of Quebec. And so he wanted to now do another experience with a few other people, with a few other members. And they went to a mountaintop that was never climbed, but they had to, it was in the wilderness, like there was no road towards the foot of the mountain. They had to take a helicopter to get there. And they had taken boats, inflatable boats. And so the plan was to come back with the boats, with the inflatable kayaks. And finally, during their trip, they turned over in the ice cold water.
Oof.
because the water was way higher than what they thought it would be. And so, yeah, so the 3 out of the 4 stayed in the water, and my husband was one of them. And that's when I discovered that I was pregnant.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yes. So that was, of course, an incredible experience because you're pregnant, is pregnant for the first time, or let's say the second time. The first I had, miscarried, let's say. And yeah, well, you have to deal with it. So I had a lot of support, and we can come back to that later if you want. But so now, yeah, finally my son is born. And then just a jump 14 years later, in fact, I wanted for him, for my son, to have some kind of connection with his father, because I know it's very important to have that recognition from the father. And I was looking for a medium, somebody who would be able to make that connection. And so during that session that I, in fact, did just for my son, I received a message. Your husband would also like to talk to you, has a message for you. And so the message was that we had signed a soul contract that he would leave early. He was only 47, but that he would stay with me to help me make contact with the other world where he was. And so I said, wow, if I have signed that contract, that means that, I better develop that. But I needed some help to do that because I had already, some medium capacities, capacities of psychic in some way. I received messages from angels already, but I was not sure. It is my fantasy or whatever. Hey, so yeah. So finally, I found somebody who gave courses in that, and that is Lisa Barnett. Maybe you know her. She's really very good, and it's a very thorough course that she gives, because some people now it's more and more, let's say, fashion. You can learn that if you want, like in a few hours time, but I think there is more to that, and it is really important to go thorough, to really go to the basis as much as possible. So yeah, I signed up for that course, the first course, and just for myself, to learn to read the Akashic Records for myself. And then later on, I went on and on and on and on, and finally I became certified in it. So, but just the question, what is the Akashic Records? So, Akashic Records, in fact, is the story that every living being has. So it can be a human being, but it can also be an animal, or a plant, or a tree, or a stone. So from the moment that this living being has started his life, we can have the whole information about from the start till now, and even information about the future eventually. So because it's like a kind of a quantum field of information. It's still a little bit different than a medium, because a medium often works with guides, people that might have been in their lives, or maybe just an angel, or an angel, a light being, for sure, very beautiful. The Akashic Records is still a little bit different, because it are Akashic Record keepers that I connect with, and it's the keeper of the field of that person. And so they are like a little bit like a librarian. Like, you just go to the library and you say, knock, knock. I would like to have some information for myself or for that person. And so they go and pull out the book of life of that person, and they open it where the information is to be found. Like just to make it a little bit more in an image, so it's, in fact, I have to go through these Akashic Record keepers, and then they bring up whatever can be the information that can be important for that person at that moment. And so that is, of course, past lives. I don't go to past lives just by curiosity, of course. Hey, it's always regarding questions like eventually karmic questions or relationships that you have now. Do they have some roots in the past? The problem that I go through now, I'm always like coming back to that same problem. What is the origin of this? And so I sometimes work with the chakras also because I've had also some training in that. So yeah, the Akashic Records. So you can in fact find Akashic Records about a planet also, for instance, so the whole story of the Earth or the story of Saturn or the Sun or whatever. It's amazing. But there are many specialities in it. And so I cannot say that I'm good in looking at the history of the planet. I can maybe get to a certain level, but they use always what we have already as a basis. So for me, for instance, in the work that I do with people to go to their own story, like prenatal story, or, in the counseling I do, the work with past lives also, the work with chakras, all the trainings that I've done. So they use that and it's an enhancement, let's say. I get information that I otherwise wouldn't have had, but it's always based on that framework of work, you see? So even, if I would like to go to an animal, for instance, if my cat, for instance, was running away a few years ago, I had to find out what happened. Is the cat still alive? Is she in danger? What happened? So I was able to get some information, but I was asking a specialist of animals to please, can you also go into, because they might have more information, more detailed. So, and that's, there's many layers in this also, many levels. So I cannot say that I'm at the top of this. Like I'm doing this since 5 years now, and people are really pleased with it. It's always like very, it makes sense to them what comes up. So it helps them. They come back. And so what my specialty is now, and what I really, really love to do, is to go into the soul that is incarnating, because that's what I have been trained in, like to contact the soul that is incarnating through a pregnant woman, and to discover what is this all about, what is this soul coming to do here, like, the sole purpose of this soul, what are the talents that it brings, maybe some problems also that eventually, if the parents are aware of it, they can cater to that, give lots of confidence to the soul, so that it feels more okay coming to this earth, because it's oftentimes a hard jump for a soul. You know that probably. Hey, it's a difficult jump, because from the moment, the soul might have made a plan to come here, and that's also one of the typical questions that I receive. What is my soul plan? So this soul plan is made in a world of complete light, and a blazing light of awareness and consciousness and love. And so you make your plan. It's like, making a plan for your work when you're on a holiday. You're all fine, you're all relaxed, you're enjoying life. And then you come back to your house, and then you have to put these plans into action. But you had forgotten a little bit about the difficulties that were around that plan, so, and that's a little bit also what I see. So that the soul, from the moment that it comes in contact with the first cell, it's as if it forgets this link, this connection to this higher world, and to all the power that we have inside of us. And so it's all of a sudden very scary, because they also remember how it was to be on this earth when they were in the physical body, and they might have suffered a lot, like end of lives, for instance, previous lives, end of lives, suffered because of illnesses or conflicts with people or war, all these difficult things. And they might not have been completely cleaned up in between lives. And so that's why this first cell changes a lot in the perception already. And so what I perceive is that oftentimes, and what I have seen with the clients discovering themselves also, that all of a sudden they feel alienated. They feel alienated from this world of love and light that they were in before, and they feel completely alone. And that can be the start of the story of loneliness, powerlessness. So yeah, it's incredibly interesting to look at all these things, and so especially for the parents, because the parents often, most of the time, are not aware what is the awareness of the soul coming in, and the psyche, in fact. So how aware that this little unborn child is already, that they know so well if they are loved, if they're welcome, if mommy is happy or not. And if mommy is not happy or not completely happy, we can have also many layers in that, but the baby will think that he is the origin of it, and he will feel guilty. And so kids do that all the time, and even after birth. If mommy is not well, the baby will always think, okay, I'm the problem here. And so it's so important for mothers to know that they can, if they are in stress or they are, going through difficulties, that they can tell the baby, hey, I'm going through a difficult period here, but it is not your fault. Like, you're not, you're welcome. You are completely loved. That's what they need to hear. Just give me some time and it will be all okay, but don't take it up on you, because otherwise the baby takes up this stress and all the all the hormones that come in, and that have an effect on the physical building of their body and the building of their psyche, etc. So that is also my calling, to make people more aware of that, and to help them to how they can bring the best circumstances and the best consciousness for these 9 months. How they can be connecting to the baby, and just do whatever their own soul feels. If the mother feels, I would like to go for a walk, that she just listens to that. To music, working with visualizations, arts, etc. So it's such an important basis for the child that's going to be born. So because he will build his whole life on these 9 months.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned that. I'm going to say something that came up in a spirit baby session recently, where the baby told me that he liked a certain food, and the mother was like, I hate that food. Said, you're going to start craving this food because the baby wants this food.
Right. Well, yeah, for instance, that's the thing. The baby might have needs.
Yes.
Needs to, to have some more quiet time, for instance, or
yes.
And we are in this life. We have to run all the time, and we have this to be this super mom. We have to continue to work till the last day before birth, and and then finally we'll have time for the baby. But then these 9 months have been, a stressful time. Can have been a stressful time, and not always like that.
Right. My goodness, there's so much depth to this. There is so much depth. Hey everyone, do you love the Reluctant Medium podcast and want to support the podcast while getting some amazing perks in return? Join us at the Patreon community. By becoming a Patreon supporter, you'll get access to exclusive content, behind the scenes insights, early episode releases, and a whole ton more. As a member, you'll also have access to spiritual content like guided meditations, in-depth discussions on mediumship, and exclusive interviews with spiritual experts. It's a great way to show your love and stay even more connected with myself and the show. Sign up today at patreon.com/thereluctantmedium and help the Reluctant Medium keep bringing you the content that you love. I wholeheartedly appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you on Patreon soon. So the Akashic Records, I have a question about this. I want to get a little more detail here. So there are times where I have connected to a spirit guide, for example, but they tell me that they are the person's Akashic Record guide. And
Okay.
it sounds to me like you say they're like a librarian.
Mhm.
I have never gone into someone's records. I've only gone into mine, but
Mhm.
I've not gone into somebody's records. Is it so when I get information from the Akashic Record guide, it's from the guide who's giving me information. Do you actually travel or do you see the person's library and their books, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's just an image. In fact, hey, so a book. It's like the book of life, like has been written in the
Yeah.
Bible. Hey, the book of life. Um, yeah. So how do I do it? Well, I work with a prayer, with several prayers before I start. So and what happens then when so the first part of no, one of the parts of the prayer is a prayer that I say out loud. So the client hears it also. So we get together in a certain vibration. And
Mhm.
then I go on in with a silent prayer with the full name of the person. So the name that the person has on his passport. And so I open that, I do that prayer to open the Akashic records of that person. And of course, I can only do that if they have given me the okay to do that, so the permission.
Sure.
And so what happens? Well, before I do this, also I do a special meditation to have my vibration going up, like to elevate my
Mhm.
frequency with a special meditation where I go into the chakras and go up and up and up, even above my head. So the ring meditation, I call it, and so that's the way I get into my own Akashic records first. And when I'm in that field, from there I'm more, I'm capable of also going up into the Akashic records of somebody else. And if I'm not in good shape, for instance, I have a headache or getting ill, I cannot do this because my vibration is not as high. So it's really important that is okay. And they will tell me, hey, so if I still try to do this, and they will say, oh, no, 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 not today. Or they will say, do the proper work to get into it. So that means for me, it's a safety net in the sense that,
Mhm.
I will
Yeah.
not just do anything that might not be ready, not be right afterwards. See, so
Oh, it's beautiful. It's
mhm,
beautiful to
mhm.
be in that high vibrational state and to have the information blocked from you if you aren't there. That just creates a sense of safety. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, so people are oftentimes reacting like, Akashic records. It's only for masters, for initiates, for people that are, that have been completely eliminated, and it has been like that for a very long time.
Okay.
But let's say that even before that, like very very long ago, people had access to that automatically, naturally, because they were just still very connected, and they might not have had to go through prayers, etc., because they were just still very up, very high up. But at a certain moment, they started using that to go and get the gold of the neighbor or to start wars,
Mm.
information to have, you know, for things that are not allowed. And so the Akashic Record keepers have then decided to take this field of information away from humanity. And that is like at least for the last 1,000 years, if it's not more, it has been like that. The masters, the initiates that were very very evolved, they were able to get to that information. But not very long ago, like around the year 2000, they have decided to bring that back because they said like it's really important that humanity has access to this information so that they can free themselves from their past, because we are so much still taken into our inner blocks and etc. So and this period now we have to prepare so that we can be part of this incredible big jump of opening up to a higher level of consciousness, in fact, and to be able to do that, you have to be able to to free yourself from your past, in fact, for everything that blocks you and the traumas, whatever. Hey, so that's why they said, okay, we're gonna bring it closer again to humanity, so that deep work can be done.
Yes. Okay, so, and I think that we are moving into higher consciousness through the darkness that we're experiencing right now on the planet. Is pretty heavy right now, but I think it's necessary. So I'm hopeful. I am curious about when you talk about these souls that are incarnating from conception and during pregnancy, when you look into that soul's trajectory, like their life plan, their contract, do you see different iterations of their life? So for example, this is in the future, but it also could be this. It could also be this. It could also be this. Does that ever happen?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So you can make a plan, but then you still have the choice at the moment itself to go with the plan or not, or to just adapt it because you don't feel ready. So a plan can be adapted also. If it's really too much that you've taken on, you can choose to make it a little bit gentler on your psyche, on your being, because it can be really overwhelming. Hey, as I said, we take so many things up. I'd like to work on this and that and that and that and that, and then finally,
I know.
Sorry, but I don't have the energy. It's too much, and yeah. So, and they understand that for sure. Hey, so there is some flexibility, and we have the freedom. We have the freedom to say yes or no, or to adapt it, or to make like a little a loop, like to yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So there are some milestones for sure, but still, we can push these milestones a little bit further away. Yes.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to me because I've connected with guides who, someone they've come to me and they're saying, I'm tired of all of these difficult things. Why is this happening? Mm-hmm. And the guides will tell me because you chose it. And they're saying, I'm done. and the guides say, great, then you're done.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If it's really too much, they are very open to that. There is so much compassion and understanding. And so, what is so special about these Akashic Record keepers or guides, I think this is the same thing, is that they are souls that when they were created by Source, they chose not to incarnate, but to stay there to be of service to humanity. And that is the difference in the guides that have been on Earth, and that might have been our, grandfather or whatever. But they have had their experiences on Earth, and they might not always been, they might have some biases, like, that they might not have completely freed themselves from. Whereas the Akashic Records keepers, they don't have that. They don't have the experience of being in a human body, but they have this incredible, huge, open consciousness still. And so no biases. And so they're full of this unconditional love and compassion.
That is making a lot of connections for me. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. So when folks come to you for, let's say there's a couple who comes and they are pregnant, what are the kinds of things they can expect to come away from? What can they expect to know when they leave your space? Yeah.
So, well, there are some questions that they can ask. So, for instance, to know more about the soul, which soul is this? What special qualities, talents that they have, that it has, which needs it has. Like, for instance, what does the soul here want what the mother to eat? What does the soul would like the mother to do? Like, if it has a talent, for instance, for arts, like it can maybe ask the mother to play with colors and forms, or maybe to dance or whatever, so because that's already it's already a learning process for the baby. Hey, so that is possible. Also, for instance, if there are difficulties between the two, father and mother relationship, maybe it's very important that can be cleared up, because that's a huge point for the baby, that if it can feel this harmony between the two, it's such a blessing. But if it's not there, it's going to become stress for the mother, and fear, anxiety. If there is relationship problems, mother is thinking about, can this go on? Should I just separate or whatever? Hey, so all that, whatever, what also can come up if the mother has had a miscarriage before, for instance. And she has not really gone through the whole process of letting go of that. The baby might feel that it's not okay to be there because it feels, mommy is not completely open to me. There is still this sadness that is lingering on. And so to work on that, so that energetically that she can be freed of that. Also, if there is some fear for the mother towards motherhood, to help her settle that, and also work with the chakras. For instance, if the mother there is sometimes what I feel is like a block for the uterus to completely sink in the pelvis, to really be okay being pregnant, and so to help her to release that energy,
wow.
blockage. If there is for herself like some blockage towards incarnation, which can still be there from her own incarnation process, so that also needs to be worked on, because the baby will just copy that. If you don't take it away, it will copy that. If there is depression or anxiety, so the mother will be helped to relieve that. And of course,
wow.
the best is in fact to start before conception.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, yes.
Yes. All about that. So of course, and it's not very popular yet. It's gaining a little bit of popularity.
Yay!
A little bit, but your own prenatal period as a mother, your own birth, your own upbringing has a huge impact on the child that you will have, because if that's not cleared, they will just take it over as it is their own, because the babies are like sponges. They just take it all over. And,
Right.
and all the beliefs that the mother has about herself, like, for instance, I'm not lovable, or a mother that is not in contact with her emotions, because it can be too hard. If I've had lots of trauma, you just close up towards your emotions. So, well, the baby will just also copy that. So the more that she can do before conception, the better it will be for the baby.
Oh, I 100% agree. What you're talking about too is very sciencey now. It's ancestral trauma. It's very rigorously studied now, epigenetics and how it happens in the physical by the DNA. It's true. So to heal that is...
I know. Luckily, there is so much science now. Hey, this whole prenatal psychology, neurodevelopment, all that is all confirming all this. In that sense.
Yes, yay! Science and spirit are meeting up finally. I think we're headed there. Do you find, Christina, that people can access their own Akashic records?
Oh yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. So maybe it takes like Lisa Barnett has written a book. Do I have it here? A book that helps you. So the Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records by Lisa Barnett. And there are some of the prayers. Well, yeah, you can go through the book and see which prayers are really for you. And with that book, you can start already for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can go on if you want to be certified with it. With her, yeah, it's a possibility. It took me a year altogether, because once the courses were over, we had to have 75 case studies done. And then 3 exams also. 3 exams with the teachers of the school. So it's quite serious. It's not just, just jump in and do it,
For a couple of hours, you're certified.
Yes, yeah. No, really. Yeah, and even that, I would even go even deeper. Because, what you have in yourself, in the way that you think and feel, and your own blockages, you will attract a higher level of information or a lower level. I mean, depends on because you're like an antenna, hey? So the whole body, your whole mind, your whole heart is an antenna for this information. So the more that you can be freed, the better. She has another book with prayers. Oops, I'm sorry. So 73 prayers for knowing, for what is it? From questioning to knowing. Yeah.
Oh, that is very cool. And I will link up to both of these books in the show notes for folks who
Okay.
are listening or watching. That's
You're right.
wonderful. Thank you for those resources.
Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah. And it's also, I love that you empower people, right? Because that's the work that I do. I like to say I'm working myself out of a job because I think that the most important part of my work is to show that people can do this on their own, and that you say to people, here's the depth, here's what's going on, but here's what you can do about it, is so beautiful and wonderful work.
Yes, absolutely. And the Akashic Records keepers are also healers in some way. So they do a whole lot of cleaning up and elevating also the frequencies of the person. So they're filling them up afterwards with energy from source, and people really feel way better afterwards. And so, and check that out with the pendulum. All the chakras are most of the time completely flipped in the positive way more. So that's beautiful. That how they work.
Indeed.
Yeah, right.
Indeed.
So
That's so wonderful.
in my book, I have some of the reports of how I worked with pregnant women, a few reports. And so that's a way to.
Oh, you have a book as well?
Yes,
Oh, well, let's show that.
Yes.
Here we go.
Soul Journey.
Beautiful. Oh, gosh, that's wonderful. Of course, we're going to be linking that too. How wonderful. Yes,
Well,
I love it.
Seeds of a New Humanity. So yeah, it's a whole package like of, my story. That's where I started with, in fact, my story of losing my husband while I was pregnant. And I wanted to write about how I dealt with that also. And I dealt with that thanks to knowing before this all happened that I had lifetimes before where I lost my husband, but I didn't deal right with it. In one lifetime, I killed myself.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, the understanding was, okay, this is coming back. So that means this is karmic, let's say, hey? But it means that it's a test to see if now I'm dealing with it better. And so this helped me a lot, in the sense of, in fact, we write our own plans. Our higher self, it's like our director, and it attracts the situation that we need to evolve. And if we can have that as a mindset, even if we know that we have made plans in the, up there that were maybe very, very big, maybe just knowing that we have written them ourselves and signed up. I signed here, it's better to go with it than saying, the universe just conspires against me or something. Like, no, it's not like that. Things happen not to us, but for us. And if we go with that, you can find the power within to deal with it, to know, okay, I know now that I have what it takes. I have what it takes to do this, and I have the support. And of course, I had the let's say the blessing that I was already into spirituality since a long time.
Yeah.
And that helped me a lot. And what helped me a lot also was community, like, the help of people around me. So I'm living in an intentional community, and that helped me a lot. Very different than if I would have been somewhere in an apartment alone. So that was the start of the book. But then I wanted also to add all the experiences that I've had with my clients and how they have dealt with difficulties during their own prenatal period and how that was resolved. I write a little bit about the soul because, for you yourself, you're a psychotherapist, psychologist. Yeah. So
Psychotherapist, yeah.
like a therapist, eh? So what normally is understood as psyche, the Greek word for psyche is soul,
Mhm.
but it can also be translated as mind. And in fact, it's only understood in psychology now as mind. But in fact, the whole thing of the soul is like, it's gone. They are not allowed to talk about it. So the soul is a whole concept for sure, coming from religion a little bit. But even in religion, I think it is not always understood like it should be. There's lots of confusion. So what is the difference between the soul and the spirit and all that? And so I talk a little bit about that also, the soul.
Oh,
What is the soul, and everything going with it. And then also the second part is like how to prepare for before conception, what you can do to clear your mind, your heart, your body, and then the 9
beautiful.
months of the pregnancy. So
That is what I'm talking about, the empowerment for people to do this work for themselves. So, yes, folks need to go pick up your book, which will be linked in the show notes, of course. I'm
beautiful.
so happy that you're spreading your wisdom, Christina. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much, Maria, for listening to all this, and yeah, I feel so much on the same path together with you. It's so beautiful to know that I'm not alone, and there is other people working in the same direction.
Thank you for joining the Reluctant Medium podcast today. I hope that this episode has brought you beautiful, high vibration, and that it continues emanating from your heart space for the rest of the day and beyond. Don't forget to join the Reluctant Medium on patreon.com, and you can also visit thereluctantmedium.us and the Reluctant Medium TV show on newrealitytv.com. Until next time, my friend, may you be well.